Good afternoon, everyone. This is 4 p.m. Ho Chi Minh City time, and welcome to the webinar of the Digital Transformation series of WisePass. Today, we're going to discuss about how data is strategic for brands. It's September 19th, and welcome to all the guests watching the live stream. I'm going to be your host today, and my name is Lam Tran. I'm the co-founder and CEO of WisePass. Let me turn on my camera. I think it's working now. Great. Okay. So we've done a webinar the past couple months about data, about the data collection, about acquisition, about the engagement. And during those two webinars, the webinar was really focused on concept, and a very, very proactive workshop where you get a few definitions, a little bit of explanation, and then you're quickly thrown to the workshop on how to work and get this done right. Today, I've decided just to answer a few questions from some other people who challenged me and said, well, it's great to have all those workshops, it's great, but then some people are looking for reasons why it is important to care about digital transformation, why data is so or that important. Because like marketing has been done and is being done today for quite a long time. So why suddenly like data becomes so interesting or so important? So this is what I'm going to try to answer today. And I broke down the presentation into two parts. But it won't be about workshop. It will be pretty much focused about the concept. It will be focused about theory, but also like high level like discussions, like whenever you're an executive. And if you have to make a decision, then what are the reasons for you just to think about data and to think about this strategically? So first, I'll just jump on digital transformation. So for us, like digital transformation at WisePass is really about like how you can use all the digital platforms and how you're gonna connect and make sure you can reach your consumers the most relevantly possibly. And today we can see, I hope that nobody's gonna be able to discuss that a lot of people right now are using well, the internet, of course, but also like smartphones, laptops, and they're going on the internet on various like social networks such as Facebook, Instagram, and most recently TikTok. And the trend is not about to stop. So the question for the brand is actually, how do you allocate your budget now from paying those like traditional media to like those digital media so you can keep reaching those consumers, your target audience? First, maybe I'm gonna discuss a bit more about WisePass. So first, WisePass is really simple. Like we are an ad tech startup, and what we do is to connect those brands and the consumers through our mobile app. And the consumers will have like various plans they can subscribe to, such as Spotify or Netflix. And what they will be able to do with the brands is pretty simple. They will be able to access all those products and services that the brands will provide them. And we focus on offline locations, and that means that people will be able just to access those products or services offline. So I'll give you an example. If we are partnering with the company Chivas, then Chivas will basically provide those bottles of whiskey across some bars. So you'll be able just to access a bottle of Chivas whiskey in a bar that the brand has actually selected. If you talk about Ducati, so the motorbike brand, the Italian one, so you'll be able, the brand will give you some free service, such as like a free test drive. A new model arrives, and then you'll be able to get there, and you'll be able just to try this new bike. That's a service that you'll be able to access by going to their showroom, so offline location. For brands, most importantly, and why it's important is why they use WisePass is because we are own media. So what's happening with the brands is they build a consumer base and that they can put on WisePass, and then they're gonna be able to reach those consumers again, and then they won't pay each time they have to reach those consumers. So we in this category. The second is we have powerful features as a marketing platform, because we will enable the brands to do 4 things, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But pretty much we do acquisition, engagement. So some brands call this activation, acquisition, activation, promotion, and retention. And we let those brands to do all this in a single platform. And that's the main difference from all the other platforms we can look at usually. So if you're looking at Facebook, usually it's going to be pretty much paid media. So it's a paid media, and then whenever you want to reach your consumers, you want them to look at your ad, and then or maybe you're gonna be paying a CPM or CPC, right? That's pretty much the same for Google. That's pretty much the same for YouTube. Just consumers, you pay, and then they click, or they may do some other actions, like they may just watch a video, and that's pretty much it. What we do with WisePass is to make sure that you are able to register very different type of consumption and or interaction with your brand. So they may actually redeem a product or a service from you. That's what we call acquisition. They may engage with you, and the way we call this engagement thing is not just on liking a picture, but it's actually joining an event. And they will join several events that you may actually organize as a brand. And then you can organize this within WisePass, and we're working with Eventbrite to do so. You can organize a promotion, meaning that you want to make a sale, and then you want people to come over a very specific location where they can purchase something, and in exchange or in return, then those consumers will get something back, right? And then you decide as well. That's promotion. And retention or reward is really simple. It's based on all the subsets of actions that have been done previously. You will be able just to reward specific consumers that have done all those actions. So this is quite some powerful features we have built on our platform. So the last thing about WisePass I'd like to share is we are very consumer driven. So we are focused on making sure the consumers can get a great value proposition. It's an app, it's mobile first. We're making sure that we're in the palm of their hands. We're making sure that this subscription, this membership that we call, has to be very interesting for them. And as we're getting more brands on our platform, then the value proposition is increasing. So to wrap it up, we're all about acquisition, about activation, about promotion, about retention. That's what WisePass is all about. And we are a marketing platform. So today the topic is really focused about data, and I try to be really focused about the necessity to discuss about data, because it's strategic. And when you ask the question why this is strategic, a lot of people are talking about you have to be data driven. It's all about big data, so you need to collect a lot of data. Some people talk about customer data platform. What is going on? And the truth is, data is actually important, but maybe not in the way that people may approach things. And I'll give you an example now. So let's say you have you just organize an event. People gave their business cards, the emails. Let's say emails, but that's pretty much of it. So you get the emails of a bunch of different people, and the problem is actually what do you do with that? And the next answer I usually get is, well, you just put this on a newsletter, and you build a newsletter, you put this on MailChimp or any other mail service provider, and then you will just like send them a newsletter, and that's it. That's actually why data is important. To me, it's not. So if it's just about collecting a bunch of emails and just sending the email over some people and that maybe those people don't care about, then this is not about the proper use of data. To me, the proper use of data is really about like, how do you collect data? Still have to do that, but then make sure you process the data, and then actually you analyze the data, and then eventually you make a decision on what to do next with your target consumers. So it's a really long process where you need to really make sure that you have the most important part, like you need to be relevant to your consumers. You want to send a message, you got to be relevant. You can't just splash them like a lot of commercials and ads just randomly, because like you'll lose engagement. You gotta make sure you'll be able like to measure that kind of activity. If you send the message, how do you know if they care or not? Especially when you have to send this message to across maybe 1 million consumers. How do you measure that? If you measure that, are you able to see if it's a good response or not? And if it's good, what do you do next? If it's bad, what do you do next? And then from there, we have what we call segmentation, because those millions of consumers you may have won't react the same. They all have their own lives, and then they'll just behave differently. So the consumer behavior, even though you have like a very clear target demographic from 25, 34, male, with a master degree, that's great. But the point is actually all those people have very different life experiences. They may be married, they may be single, they may have a job, or they may not have a job. And then you have to understand the responses from those consumers. If you're able to collect enough data to make sense out of it, and you're able to measure properly, so you can send a message that is more relevant over time, then this is what I call like that's good digital transformation and proper use of data. But today I'm going to talk also in the first part now why this is strategic, and I found out there's like three very simple key. So first, data is critical, because like if you are having any marketing objective and you are actually, especially when you're competing in the landscape with multiple players, it helps you, it enables you just to be faster, and it enables you, like the data enables you just to operate in a simpler way. And most importantly, like the data will enable you just like to operate more cost effectively or cheaper. So first, speed. How long does it take for a marketer to think about the message and then eventually like click on the button and then just send the message across all the different consumers? And I'll assume for now that just sending the message. The common responses I have is, well, people are trying just to, well, craft a message, think about it for quite some time, and eventually, like, they prepare everything, they look at the media buy, and then it takes months, if not like quarters, basically just to prepare the campaign. So what I've seen is a lot of people have like to think about the message like all the time and actually make sure they have the right message, and then they send one message to the consumers, and that's it. So in a landscape where like everything gets faster, and if you can only send like a message and it is going to take you around like a few months just to craft one and then send it over, then that's not going to be good enough, because consumers are going to have their own lives and then they will forget you really quickly. So speed is going to be key, and data is going to enable you just to target specifically like the right people at the right frequency to send them the right message, and enable you as well just to personalize the message. So that's one key component. If you're able just to send messages that's going to be more frequent but also more relevant, then that's one you can actually win and actually, or at least get a more competitive advantage. So this is like one key strategic aspect for brands to leverage data. Second, simplicity. Very often we see brands like thinking about like big grand campaigns, thinking they're gonna do this and this and that. But then eventually when it comes to execution, then it requires so many steps to really execute, just to operate that they realize like their capabilities are not fit with the grand vision that they may have, or the plan, the marketing objectives, and the way they want to do things, because it's not going to be, it's going to be too complex. So the main question is actually how many steps do you have to take in order to get the message sent over to your consumer base? So you have a great message, but then now, like, in order to send the message, like the amount of steps just to just send a message is gonna be like taking forever. Especially if you're working for traditional brands. I have seen like some brands to struggle about the creative part, where they have great campaigns and great ideas and all that, but then when they start to think about like the execution, they struggle with that. So the data, again, actually, and the platform, the right platform, will be enabling you just to reduce the amount of steps, think about something very clear, and actually quickly just go through that. So I'll give you an example, and the example is like pretty common, like for very like big brands, but also like very digital brands as well. Talk about loyalty. Loyalty, like most of the time, people try to think about like how can I make sure that my customers will, let's say I want to generate more repeat purchases from my customers. So that's the objective. And then the next thing you think about is loyalty. So I'm going to reward my consumers by actually giving them a lot of different things from other companies, because like they're going to want that, and then they're going to be able just to get that if they do such action. So they just keep buying and buying, and then eventually they get that. The sole process of actually delivering like the rewards to the customers who have been loyal to you is very tedious. And many times I've seen like a lot of brands trying just to build the whole entire thing, and then the whole entire program or campaign or loyalty program is just falling apart, just because they realize like to start from A and eventually to end with Z, there are so many steps, because you need to partner with other people. You need to make sure you sign all those contracts. You need to make sure like whenever like those customers will achieve the actions required from your in your company and business wise, then the redemption process to get the reward is going to take forever. At WisePass, the way we do it is actually fully automated. We connect with all the offline locations, and within an app, if the brand will set like X amount of objective, they will set it, and then eventually select the reward, and off you go. Like within less than let's say like 30 minutes, and 30 minutes is for people who don't know how to use the platform. You'll be able just to build a reward system. So that's actually a very important aspects to take into account. So simplicity is actually key, and doing everything yourself, usually when you're just a brand, is really hard. So that's why we see so many people just making a card and you get maybe 5 or 10% off. And maybe when you see some really big companies like Starbucks, they may have like an app and then or a card, and maybe you will be able to have like a nice application. But it's very common to see like brands struggling with, let's say, rewards. Eventually, it's cost. So we see that using data and making sure that you are able to use properly the data can actually basically just drive down the cost. So I'll give you an example. again, how much does it cost you to run your existing solutions when you actually run the data? So you may have like a bunch of different platforms, but then you eventually have like the same issues, like get a bunch of data, and then you need some data analysis, and then you need this and that. And the thing is, like, if you have a large company with a large database, you're gonna sit on a gold mine. The problem is actually, how does it cost you just to get a golden nugget and then a nice golden ring that you can sell on the market? And that's pretty much the problem. Like the whole entire data processing or gold refining is taking some time. And it's actually a big question to ask strategically. Like, if you have a lot of data, how do you get the data to turn this data into money? And most of the time, you have a lot of gold nuggets, and then you can't actually just turn that into money. And it's even worse. Just getting a lot of gold nuggets will be just like sitting down here, and then it's going to cost you a lot of money. With a lot of people like building those database and then just handling the maintenance and all that. So the question is actually, data is going to enable you to drive down the cost and then drive up the sales. And I can get another example, but I'm already like almost 20 minutes time. So I'm going to jump to the second part of the topic. So the key point is actually, you have to understand that data is going to really enable you just like to maybe put your brand in a position where you're going to be able like to be faster with your target audience. It's going to be cheaper for you to operate. It has to be simpler. So leveraging the data is going to really enable you to have all that. But then the next question I have after that is, well, if I have the data and if I'm trying to use it, like, what's so important? Because like the first step is collecting the data and getting a lot of emails or phone numbers and all that. Then how do you get this gold nugget and then transform it into like a nice gold ring? So that's data processing. So actually, I talked about gold, but then in my slides, I'm going to talk about a diamond. But that's pretty much the same idea. So we start with the data collection, and then let's say we have an email, right? So now the question is, how do you process an email? How do you actually take an email and actually make sure that this email will become valuable? So I'll talk about that. You can just collect any email like into any activity from the Facebook lead gen campaign or the events. That's fine. So the first step for me is to talk about the refining process. And I'm going to use WisePass as an example, and then that's not the only way to do it, but then I'm going to talk about a platform I know best. So let's say whenever like a customer, a subscriber is going to sign up on our platform, we just get an email. That's pretty much of it. Just get the credit card information, but then we don't even have the credit card information because it's on another platform, and then we try to separate this sensitive data from our database. So we just get an email. And with that email, we know that this person is a subscriber. And this person will go out and redeem a product or service from the brands that will be on our platform. So what we do know is actually that this email will be redeeming, let's say, a beer. So the minute that this person is going to redeem a beer in a bar, then we'll be able to qualify the email and say, now this email is actually, it's a beer consumer. This is now not just like a random email. So we get the data, we enrich it. So that's the first step. The other step and the way we can process the data is through the engagement activation events, basically, because brands will try to engage with the consumers as well. So what we do is very simple. Again, let's say a brand is going to organize a series event for a year, so they do like an event every month. And what's going on is whenever like this subscriber from WisePass will come and actually scan to get in the event, then we will know as well. So now we know that this is a beer consumer, and this beer consumer is going to the event from that beer brand. And this is when this email becomes more valuable again. And then we will be able to know how engaged the consumer is over a period of 12 months. We will be able to know that this is a beer consumer. So this is not random anymore. So the gold nugget or the stone, diamond stone, that is actually maybe worthless when you start to collect that, is gonna be refined and refined and refined and eventually turn into like a beautiful diamond, because now you have a clean database where you can send a message to a very specific consumer that you know is a relevant consumer because they consume beer and you are selling beer. So you're not just targeting randomly to some people that you don't know. So this is how powerful it is. The next step is you come and segment the database, because like let's say that email is not just a single email, because you will have likely hundreds, thousands of emails that will actually redeem a beer or not. So the question is actually who's going to be redeeming a lot, who's actually redeeming not that much, who's going to be on the average. So there's a bell curve basically. So we can segment the database and say those people are hanging out and going to those bars quite frequently. And let's say frequently for the brand will be more than 10 times a month. And on average, it's going to be maybe 5 to 10 times. And not so frequently will be less than 5 in a month. They may just hang out during the weekends. And now, like these brands that will have the data in front of them can actually look at, okay, so what do I want to do with the very frequent outgoers? Like they go out very frequently, more than 10 times. Then you can send a message and just tell them something, whatever you want. The brand will actually discuss and just decide on that matter and quickly maybe schedule a push notifications and just tell them something else. They can automate that, by the way. The minute they go out maybe more than 10 times, then they're actually going to get invited to the beer event of the brand the next month, because maybe that's an objective. And then if they redeem 10 times, then they get invited to the next event. That's an example. But the most important part is actually you are able to segment and see like who's going to redeem a lot. Or a second way, you will be able to see like who's engaged or not. These people that redeemed, they came to the event. But some people came to the event every time. Some people didn't come to the event at all. Some people came at the event just once or twice. Based on that, what do? You segment again as well, because that's another type of activity, is activation. And you will be able just to see who will be the most relevant consumers you want. And then those consumers, you can actually slowly send them a promotion, reward them if you want to. That's up to you. Now let's talk about the analysis. Well, I kind of did that with the step before, but it's really about like you get all the numbers popping up on the dashboard now, and then you look at the level of engagement, the level of redemption, the level or the amount of subscribers or the consumers that you acquired, the amount of people that keep repeatedly just engage with your brand. So knowing that, having all those metrics, what is your next key decision? Do you want to get more consumers on your database? Do you want to engage more the ones that didn't got engaged much in the previous event, maybe because it wasn't that great? Do you want to actually increase the repeat consumption or redemption from your consumers overall, because you want to make sure the brand awareness is good? So maybe your metric is to ensure that people that will drink maybe 10 times my beer will be aware of my brand. And then this is how you can measure your brand awareness. That's up to you. So yeah, and then after the analysis, you get all the insights, you collected them, and then you move forward with the next step. And this is when you make a decision. So the decision part is mostly internal stuff, so I don't really get involved too much into this slide. So that's actually for me like how data is strategic for brands, because it really enables brands to act faster, more cost effectively, and also it can get things done much simpler. And this is a framework like we've built in WisePass, where it's just like a reiterative process. Like you always collect more data, you process them the way I just explained, and then you analyze, then you decide, you execute, and you keep collecting the insights again from the campaigns that you've done. And then over time, you'll be able just to understand like what's going on. And then over time, you will be able like just to move forward like with a larger set of data. Every brand will have a different budget, so this is okay. And what we do now is just to make sure that we can explain that data is important, data is critical, it's strategic, because it's going to really put your brand into a different position where you're going to be able like just to think, well, measure, collect the data, but also like analyze and decide differently. Because now it's not about like just getting a nice campaign and some nice words and just to buy some media and just splash all the budget on some marketing channels. It's really about like having a proper system that collects data systematically, that processes the data automatically, then have the insights you can analyze and see the metrics and the impact behind, make a decision again, and go for the next campaign again. So that's what I wanted to demonstrate today. Well, hope you enjoyed the webinar today. We're gonna get back maybe like to a more like a classic webinar in the next month. But today is really about like answering some questions that I've received from marketers, and from especially the traditional marketers that were used to just like let's say like operate like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and make them understand that the data has to be not just to be like a little thing like you can just think about so you can just collect a few emails. It's just got to make sure that it has to be in the center of your strategy. Yes, you need to send a message, and yes, you need to be more competitive, and yes, you need to, of course, like increase sales. Obviously, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, but you should also incorporate data. So it's going to enable you to generate more sales or reduce costs. It's going to enable you just to interact more frequently with your consumers, especially if you have a own media that will be properly set up. So that's actually the key points. Anyway, have a really good day and see you in the very next webinar.